Code 3 Americans, welcome. Holy cow, the Dow dropped 1,000 points today. Worst day in over 3 months, all because one man spoke at the microphone. That one man is Jay Powell. Jerome Powell was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, uh, at their central bankers meetup there, and he had something to say about the central bank's plan relative to inflation, interest rates, all those things, and the market did not like what he had to say, or I should say, the investors making up the market did not like what he had to say. So let's take a quick look. I'm actually going to start with a story here in the Wall Street Journal. I want to show you. I'm going to actually start at the end, and there's a reason for this. If you look at the very end of this, Jay Powell says, Mr. Powell cited how then Fed Chairman Paul Volcker raised rates to very high levels in the early 1980s following multiple failed attempts to lower inflation over the previous 15 years. Our aim is to avoid that outcome by acting with resolve now. So he was talking about how um, inflation can become entrenched if you start raising rates and then backing off and raising rates and backing off, like what happened in the 70s. And Mr. Powell, Jay Powell, says that he is obviously not interested in that. And I find that interesting. Reason I started at the end. I was at the Investor Summit in Belize in June, and a number of people were there. Number one was, or one of which was Danielle DiMartino Booth, who used to work inside the Federal Reserve and knows Jay Powell. And she said that Jay Powell was not going to let his legacy be one that let inflation beat him. She said he's worth well over $100 million and he doesn't need the job. So at his age, at his season of life, legacy matters. And he wants to be Paul Volcker, going down in history as the person that crushed inflation, not somebody that was a patsy and let it, or became a patsy and let it pass along. So let's look at some of the quotes Jay Powell said here today, which triggered the market falling out. Says he's talking about overall, talking about fighting inflation. We will keep at it until we are confident the job is done. He talks about while rate increases would bring down inflation, quote, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses. These are the unfortunate costs of reducing inflation, but a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain. So what's he saying there? He's saying that, yeah, what happened in the stock market today, he's okay with that. Danielle in Belize said he actually wants to break the housing market because she says it's egg on his face and he knows it. I just did a video on where housing inflation came from. Maybe I'll put that at the end screen on this video. And the data certainly shows that it came from obviously easy money policy overlaying a few other things, but it's it's interesting to look at the data. And she knows that he knows that they created high inflation in housing. So the question is, I'm not surprised to see the paper equity markets fall. That actually erodes purchasing power, which will help slow spending, which will help slow consumer price inflation. So Powell is probably trying to break the stock market. He certainly doesn't care that it is breaking. And I think people that thought they just bought the dip here in the last 4 or 5 weeks or over the summer probably just had a bad awakening today. And we'll see what the rest of the week brings here. But so far, it's looking like they're going to stay the course, which makes total sense. The question is, are they going to push it into housing? And if you go look at what pushed up the housing prices in that video, maybe you'll find some information there to give you your own assessment of what you think they'll do so you can make decisions for yourself. Now, Mr. Powell here is talking about returning inflation back towards a 2% target, and it's going to, quote, require maintaining a restrictive policy stance for some time, end quote. And again, he's talking about 1970s when the central bank oscillated back and forth between high interest rates and backing off to shore up growth. And the quote was, quote, the historical record cautions strongly against prematurely loosening policy. So eventually, I believe the central bank will have to reverse course just to be able to avoid a complete depression at some point. But for now, it looks like they are going to stay the course, and they're going to allow some things to get crushed, and to use his quote above, allow some pain to show up in households and businesses, if that's what it takes. So another quote: "Our responsibility to deliver price stability is unconditional. We are committed to doing that job." End quote. So kind of interesting news today, and the stock market absolutely just bottomed out. I was looking at gold prices here a little while ago, and I don't want to waste your time clicking around in them, but I was looking at gold prices. Gold's down on this news, and I thought back to June. Danielle and even George Gammon both talked about, when you see this, margin calls probably are being triggered, and institutional money is maybe moving towards liquidity, which could be putting downward pressure on gold. In other words, they're dumping gold into the market maybe, and looking for some liquidity to answer those margin calls uh, when uh, when this sort of thing happens. So anyway, send an email to community@code3assets.com. You'll get invited to our next community meetup. It's totally free once you're on our list. We never sell our list, anything like that. It's just a way to get good free information, our newsletters and so forth. Make sure you get the invites to our meetups, and make sure you leave us a thumbs up on this video if you liked it, and check out the one that we did earlier on housing inflation. That'll go right along with this. Until next time, thumbs up, teams up. See you next time.